What happened when an undercover CEO stepped into the shadows of his own prestigious culinary academy? Hello, brilliant minds and sharp listeners. You're about to hear a story that blends mystery, justice, and redemption in the most unexpected kitchen drama. This isn't just about stolen goods, it's about stolen trust and the bold steps one CEO takes to reclaim it. When secrets are hidden behind stainless steel doors, it takes more than a title to uncover the truth. So, lean in, because this tale will stir your heart and leave you inspired. Let's dive into the story of the hidden recipe. The aroma of rosemary and roasted garlic usually brought comfort to Nathaniel Graves, but this morning, as he stood before the smudged mirror of a backroom locker, it did nothing to calm the storm brewing in his chest. The founder of Graves Culinary Academy, once a rising star in the fine dining world, now stared at his own reflection, nearly unrecognizable. Gone was the tailored suit and signature chef's jacket bearing his embroidered initials. In their place were worn cargo pants, a faded kitchen staff shirt 2 sizes too big, and steel-toed boots scuffed from fake years of use. A baseball cap, strategically dirtied, sat low over his brow, and a slight layer of stubble added age to his normally sharp, clean-cut face. It was a disguise he'd crafted himself, every detail meticulously chosen. Nathaniel didn't just want to look like a pantry stalker, he needed to feel like one. For weeks, something had gnawed at him: unexplained shortages of premium ingredients, employee complaints that mysteriously vanished, and the quiet but steady drop in performance at his flagship culinary campus. The official reports painted a picture of perfection: balanced books, no red flags, a tight ship. But Nathaniel knew better. He hadn't built his empire by trusting paper alone. He'd risen from peeling potatoes in cramped kitchens to owning one of the most prestigious culinary schools in the country, and along the way, he'd learned that when silence grows louder than noise, something is always wrong. Most faculty and staff had never met him in person. Nathaniel preferred it that way, letting his vision and values speak for themselves. His name held weight, but his face, thankfully, remained unknown to many. That anonymity was now his most powerful weapon. As he stepped into the back hallway of the main kitchen, holding a forged employee ID clipped to his shirt and a fake name, Liam Harper, he felt a strange combination of fear and exhilaration. He was entering a world built on his reputation, but he would walk it as a stranger. Pantry intake starts at 6:30 sharp. Don't be late, a gruff voice reminded him as he joined a group of new recruits. The halls bustled with sous chefs and apprentices, none giving him a second glance. That's exactly how he wanted it. Nathaniel adjusted his cap, took a breath heavy with rosemary-scented air, and stepped into the belly of his own empire, not as its creator, but as one of the overlooked. If there was rot beneath the polished surfaces of Graves Culinary Academy, he was going to find it. One box, one whisper, one shift at a time. The energy inside the Graves Culinary Academy's main kitchen was vastly different from the polished tour videos Nathaniel had seen on the website. Beneath the gleam of stainless steel counters and humming ventilation hoods, there was tension, tight, stretched thin like over-kneaded dough. Nathaniel had still moved under the alias Liam Harper, followed a line of new hires through the loading corridor and into a small break room where a tall man in a spotless chef's coat waited. Damian Holt, head chef and director of kitchen operations, stood with arms crossed, a clipboard in one hand and an unsettling smirk on his face. His presence immediately dominated the room. The other recruits straightened their backs without being told to, and Nathaniel instinctively fell into the same rhythm, observing the quiet shift in energy, as if a predator had entered the space. "Welcome to the kitchen," Damian said, his voice smooth but sharp around the edges. "Efficiency is your religion now. Keep your heads down, follow orders, and don't touch anything that isn't yours. We're a family here, but even families have rules." He didn't wait for questions, instead nodding curtly to a sous chef who began handing out station assignments. Nathaniel was placed on pantry intake and cold storage, a perfect post for observation. He offered no resistance, playing the quiet, nervous rookie role with ease. As the group dispersed, Nathaniel took in the details others might miss. One apprentice accidentally bumped a tray of citrus onto the floor. Everyone froze. The boy's face paled as his supervisor stormed over and barked a warning before forcing him to clean it up under everyone's gaze. No one helped, No one spoke. Mira Patel, an inventory supervisor who had introduced herself to the recruits earlier with a kind but cautious smile, avoided eye contact and shuffled her clipboard closer to her chest. Nathaniel saw it clearly. This wasn't a kitchen team. It was a machine built on fear. Back in the pantry, he unpacked his first crates under flickering fluorescent lights. It didn't take long to notice how certain ingredients were logged with more detail than others, or how delivery labels seemed tampered with. But it wasn't time to dig yet. For now, he blended in, eyes open, ears sharper. Graves Culinary Academy might have looked like a five-star institution on the surface, but Nathaniel had already seen the first cracks in its foundation. Within just a few days, Nathaniel began to notice a pattern. Small details that might seem trivial to an outsider, but to a man who designed the academy's operations from the ground up, they rang alarm bells. Working the cold storage section gave him access to premium shipments, imported cheeses, truffle oils, saffron, Wagyu beef. He knew the inventory down to the gram, and yet things weren't lining up. Boxes arrived sealed, but some had missing inner packaging. Others bore delivery stickers with slight smudges, as if they'd been printed twice. When Nathaniel asked a simple question about a miscounted crate of black garlic, the supervisor deflected with a "too swift, already logged," then walked off without even checking the manifest. It wasn't just sloppiness, it was orchestration. During a late-night unpacking session, a shipment came in that hadn't been on the schedule. Rare bluefin tuna, wild mushrooms from the Alps, and an entire crate of artisan foie gras. Nathaniel checked the system, no record. Moments later, Damien Holt himself swept in, clipboard in hand, issuing vague instructions. "Get these labeled under the alternate protocol," he told the night supervisor, who nodded with robotic compliance. "And remember, no cross-logging, chef's discretion." No one dared ask what that meant. That same evening, Nathaniel caught Mira Patel frowning over an order sheet, comparing it to her tablet. Her lips moved as she muttered numbers under her breath. Before she could ask for a second opinion, Damien appeared over her shoulder, all charm and menace wrapped in a chef's coat. "Everything all right, Mira?" he asked with faux concern. She stiffened, nodded, and closed her tablet instantly. "Of course, chef." The air around her seemed to deflate as she stepped back into the shadows, visibly shaken. Nathaniel made a mental note. She was watching too. The most disturbing moment came the next morning when a sous chef whispered to another, "Make sure the extra caviar goes to the back fridge, not the main one." The other simply nodded. No questions, no paperwork, no oversight. When Nathaniel later walked by that back fridge, it was locked. A keypad, newly installed, blinked red. He'd never authorized such a thing. It was all too calculated. The silence, the rerouted inventory, the fear on Mira's face. These weren't random errors or minor miscommunications. This was a system designed to hide something, and someone, Nathaniel now realized, was profiting from the gaps. He didn't have proof yet, but he could feel it in his bones. This pantry wasn't just for storage, it was the front line of a cover-up, and he was getting closer to its rotten core. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday morning. The sky outside was still gray when Nathaniel walked into the loading bay and found a scene that made his stomach twist. Javier Morales, one of the most respected veterans in the Academy's logistics team, was being escorted out by security. His face was a mask of disbelief and quiet devastation. A cardboard box, clutched tightly in his arms, held what little was left of a decade-long career. Family photos, a chef's medal awarded by the founder himself, and a worn mug that said, "Real food, real passion." The few employees who dared glance in his direction immediately turned away, avoiding his eyes, as if guilt itself might rub off. Damien stood nearby, arms crossed, delivering a performance worthy of a stage. "It's always difficult when someone betrays the team," he said, his voice grave, "but theft is theft, and the security footage doesn't lie." No one asked to see the footage, no one spoke up, not even Mira, who stood in the background, white-knuckling her clipboard. Nathaniel stood frozen. He had worked shoulder to shoulder with Javier just days before, unloading deliveries and discussing their mutual love for rustic Italian cuisine. Javier had spoken fondly of his daughter, a culinary student saving up for her externship abroad. The man had been sharp, meticulous, and honest to a fault. There was no way he had stolen anything. The accusation didn't just feel wrong, it reeked of premeditated framing. Later, during break, whispers swirled behind closed freezer doors. "That's the third one this month," someone murmured. Same pattern. First it was Layla, then Andre, now Javier. The names hit Nathaniel like stones. He remembered their files, their clean records, their promotions that had been abruptly canceled without explanation. Word is, if you start asking too many questions about inventory, you wind up caught on a camera doing something you didn't do, another whispered. The fear in their voices was chilling, not just of being fired, but of being erased. Nathaniel knew now he was staring at a larger pattern. Every person terminated had been vocal, curious, or diligent, the kind of people who might notice if thousands of dollars worth of ingredients went missing. Damien wasn't just removing problems, he was silencing threats, and the Academy's trusted surveillance system, designed years ago to ensure safety and transparency, was being used as a weapon. Javier's dismissal was no longer just a symptom, it was a signal. Someone was orchestrating this with precision. Nathaniel's role as an observer was over. From this moment forward, he was hunting for the truth. That night, after most of the staff had cleared out and the clamor of clinking pans faded into silence, Nathaniel lingered near the back freezer under the guise of reorganizing crates. He moved methodically but kept one ear tuned to the hushed conversation unfolding just a few feet away. Mira Patel and Andre Voss crouched behind a stacked delivery cart, speaking in low, urgent tones. "It doesn't make sense," Mira whispered. "I double-check every inventory sheet, every timestamp, but when someone disappears, suddenly there's footage placing them in restricted areas. It's too perfect." Andre let out a bitter laugh. "You think it's a coincidence that everyone fired lately raised questions about the same missing goods?" He shook his head. "Leela warned me, said the system's rigged. Cameras only catch what they're meant to catch." Nathaniel held his breath, absorbing every word. This was no longer theory, it was confirmation. Mira and Andre, both intelligent and respected in their departments, were putting together the same puzzle. But neither of them had the power or access to prove anything. That made them dangerous. And in this place, danger was met with swift, silent removal. "Damien's too careful," Mira continued. "He reviews the footage before HR sees it every time. I tried reporting one discrepancy months ago. The next day, my access to certain logs was revoked." Her voice cracked slightly. "I almost got fired, Andre. I know." Andre leaned back against the wall, defeated. "So what do we do? Just keep our heads down and hope we're not next?" Mira didn't answer. Her silence said everything. Nathaniel's heart pounded. He realized that these two weren't just casualties. In wait, they were allies. Quiet fighters clinging to scraps of truth in a system built on deceit. But they were walking on a razor's edge. If Damien even suspected they were comparing notes, they'd be the next ones out, reputations shattered and livelihoods gone. As Mira and Andre parted ways, Nathaniel stepped back into the shadows, his mind racing. It was no longer enough to watch and document. The time had come to intervene, but carefully. One wrong move could blow his cover, endanger the people he now knew were telling the truth, and allow Damien to cover his tracks for good. The conspiracy wasn't just real, it was thriving, and unless Nathaniel acted fast, it would claim more innocent lives before it fell. The Academy took on an eerie stillness after hours. The clatter of knives, the swirl of orders, and the kitchen's ever-present chatter faded into silence, leaving only the hum of refrigeration units and the distant echo of dripping faucets. Nathaniel remained behind that Friday night, claiming overtime for pantry sorting, though in reality he was waiting. He had noticed a pattern. On the last Friday of every month, a special delivery would go unlogged, followed by a curious spike in inventory loss reports and another employee's sudden termination. That evening, as the clock neared 11 p.m., Nathaniel positioned himself in the shadowy gap between two towering dry storage shelves, with a clear view of the rear service entrance, the one with a conveniently placed blind spot in camera coverage. At exactly 11:12 p.m., headlights flickered across the alleyway. A matte black van, unmarked and silent, backed up to the loading dock. The engine cut. Moments later, Damien Holt emerged from the kitchen hallway, no longer wearing his chef's coat, but a black windbreaker and gloves. 2 unfamiliar men followed him, stocky, no-nonsense types, with warehouse movements and quick, quiet efficiency. "Let's keep this one smooth," Damien said, his voice low but commanding. "These are pre-sold. Clients expect delivery by noon tomorrow." The men nodded and began unloading crates. Caviar tins, imported foie gras, rare cheeses, and truffle oil, items valued in the tens of thousands. Nathaniel, hidden behind shelves of dried herbs, filmed everything on his phone. Each motion, each crate, every whispered instruction. It wasn't just theft, it was an operation. With practiced speed, they loaded new items from the pantry into the van and sealed it shut. Damien checked off items on a tablet and handed the driver a manila folder. "Manifest and receipts. Use Route 17, he said. "Traffic cameras won't see you." But the true shock came next. Instead of heading back to his office, Damien moved toward the faculty hallway. Nathaniel trailed him silently. To the average eye, the hallway was empty, lined with old bulletin boards and culinary award plaques, but Damien stopped in front of what looked like an electrical panel. With a few quick movements, he removed the cover, revealing a digital lock pad. He keyed in a code and the wall clicked open, a hidden vault. Inside was a cache of cash-stuffed envelopes, tablets, and what looked like multiple flash drives. Damien chuckled to himself as he counted. "Black market money has no paper trail," he muttered. "No taxes, no headaches, just fear. And I've got plenty of that to go around." He pocketed a thick wad of bills, reset the panel, and walked away like nothing had happened. Nathaniel stood frozen, fists clenched. This wasn't petty corruption, it was a criminal enterprise wrapped in the facade of a culinary school. And now he had visual proof of its very heartbeat. Nathaniel knew the time for observation was over. He needed undeniable technical proof. Late that Sunday night, under the pretense of fixing a glitch in the pantry barcode scanner, he used his master-level access credentials to enter the Academy's secure server room. The familiar scent of dust and cold air greeted him, along with the low hum of machines, the heartbeat of the school's digital infrastructure. Sitting before the terminal, he navigated directly into the surveillance system's core. Most of the camera feeds appeared normal, but Nathaniel had built this system himself. He knew where to look, and what he found chilled him. Footage used to implicate employees like Javier, Layla, and Andre had all been tampered with, frame rate subtly altered, metadata mismatched, and digital artifacts carefully masked. The system logs revealed that someone with administrative access had not only spliced new footage into the timelines, but had also replaced original data with heavily compressed, low-resolution clips to obscure inconsistency. More damning still, the manipulation logs were tied to a hidden user account created 6 months ago. The usage pattern matched Damien Holt's office hours exactly. Digging deeper, Nathaniel unearthed a hidden file directory nestled within an encrypted folder labeled testkitchen_archives. Inside, he found dozens of fabricated delivery manifests, rerouted shipping logs, and a shadow inventory system tracking black market sales. Each file had been carefully designed to mirror real documents, but contained serial numbers and product tags that didn't match anything in the legitimate database. These weren't the work of an opportunistic thief. Damien had engineered a full-scale fraud operation, one that accounted for timing, digital obfuscation, and scapegoats. Then came the jackpot, an auto-synced cloud backup, unknown even to Damien, that still stored unedited original footage. Nathaniel cross-referenced timestamps with the fraudulent clips and confirmed the worst. None of the fired employees had committed theft. In fact, most of them had been nowhere near the restricted areas at the time. The original footage showed empty storage bays, while the forged versions showed fabricated silhouettes slipping into areas they never accessed. Damien had weaponized the very security meant to protect his team. Nathaniel copied every file, every manipulated video, and every forged log onto a secured external drive. He encrypted the contents and backed them up to a private cloud under his personal credentials. The trap was nearly ready, but he needed one more thing, a perfect setup that Damien wouldn't see coming. Because if there was one thing Damien couldn't forge, it was getting caught red-handed in real time. Monday night arrived with a charged stillness, as if the walls of the academy themselves were holding their breath. Nathaniel had spent the weekend orchestrating every detail of the trap. A large shipment of high-end culinary items, a 5 Wagyu beef, beluga caviar, saffron threads, and imported French truffles, had been delivered earlier that day, each piece discreetly marked with microscopic tracking tags and logged under a decoy protocol that only he and Mira knew didn't officially. But the true brilliance lay in the new network of hidden cameras Nathaniel had installed. Smaller than thumb drives, concealed inside shelf brackets, ceiling vents, even a hollowed-out spice jar. Each one streamed live footage to a secure cloud, completely outside of Damien's control. Around 10:45 p.m., as most of the staff filtered out and the kitchen dimmed to its ghost shift lighting, Nathaniel took his position in a makeshift surveillance hub set up in the disused wine cellar. On his tablet, he monitored every movement: the loading bay, the back hallway, the office corridor, and most importantly, the blind spots Damien had relied on for months. Right on schedule, the unmarked black van pulled up. Damien emerged, flanked by the same 2 men from before, their movements swift and confident. "Move fast," Damien ordered. "We've got a tight window. Clients are waiting." Crates began to disappear from the storage racks, passed silently to the van crew. On screen, Nathaniel watched dots of light on the GPS tracking interface blink and shift, mapping each stolen item's journey in real time. Then came the final piece. Damien turned to one of his men and said, "Have Travis prep the footage. That pantry kid, Liam or whatever, he's nosy. Perfect fall guy." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. The irony was poetic. They were about to pin the theft on the very man who had designed the trap. As the last crate hit the van floor, Nathaniel tapped the control icon on his tablet. The kitchen exploded with light. Overhead fluorescence flared on, the concealed camera's LED arrays igniting like stage lights. Shouts erupted. The thieves froze mid-movement, blinded and stunned. And from the shadows, Nathaniel stepped forward. No longer Liam, the pantry worker, but Nathaniel Graves, founder of the very institution Damien had used to build his criminal empire. Damien's expression twisted from confusion to horror as Nathaniel emerged from the glare of the overhead lights, holding up his ID badge, one he hadn't worn in years. "Nathaniel Graves," he said calmly, but his voice rang with authority, "founder and owner of Graves Culinary Academy, and as of this moment, you're done." Before Damien could speak, uniformed officers surged in from the loading dock and front hallway, weapons lowered but ready. Travis, the assistant kitchen manager, and Damien's quiet accomplice backed away from the van, hands in the air. The 2 outside men tried to bolt but were tackled and restrained by waiting officers. It was over in seconds. Damien lunged, fury breaking across his face, but Nathaniel stepped aside, letting 2 officers intercept him mid-charge. "You set me up," Damien shouted, struggling against the cuffs. "This isn't real! You edited the footage!" Nathaniel, unfazed, tapped his tablet and turned the screen toward him. "Actually, it's all here. Multiple live camera feeds, original system logs, unaltered footage, timestamps, and inventory tracking to match, all backed up. And," he added coolly, "recorded off menu so you can't touch it." Travis broke first. Shaking, he began to sob as he confessed everything, from faking manifests to editing security footage and targeting innocent staff. "He made me do it," Travis stammered. "I didn't want to fire Javier or Mira or Andre. Damien said we had no choice." His voice cracked under the weight of guilt. He said no one would ever question him. Nathaniel glanced at Damien, who by now had gone quiet, face pale, lips tight with rage and disbelief. "You built a kingdom of fear," Nathaniel said, stepping closer. "Used surveillance to punish honesty. Framed the very people who kept this place running. But you made one mistake. You forgot that sometimes the people who look the other way are watching everything." As the police hauled Damien away, the stolen items were recovered from the van. Every crate, every label, every tagged truffle. Inside Damien's hidden vault, investigators found forged logs, offshore account data, and records of months of black market transactions. There was no escaping this. Nathaniel stood in the kitchen long after the sirens faded, the institution he'd built nearly gutted by a man who wore his brand like a costume. But now, the mask is fallen, and tomorrow, the rebuilding will begin. In the weeks following the dramatic takedown, Graves Culinary Academy underwent a transformation more profound than any recipe revision or menu overhaul. The rot had been cut out, and what remained was fertile ground for something better. On a quiet Monday morning, Javier Morales walked through the academy doors once more, not in a pantry apron, but in a crisp navy uniform with a silver badge that read Assistant Director of Culinary Logistics. Nathaniel met him at the entrance, extended his hand with a warm smile, and said, "Welcome back, Javier. Or should I say, congratulations." Javier, eyes misty, simply nodded. "Thank you. My daughter got the scholarship offer this morning. First in our family to go to college." Javier wasn't the only one returning. Meera Patel had been reinstated and promoted to Head of Inventory Integrity, a new role designed to ensure independent oversight of all product movements. Andre Voss and Layla Brennan were brought back as culinary leads, this time with full authority to implement procedural reforms they'd once been punished for suggesting. The academy, once tense and whisper-filled, now echoed with open conversations, shared laughter, and the steady rhythm of collaboration. Nathaniel knew the damage ran deeper than lost inventory. It had shredded trust. So he began by rebuilding from the inside out. Security footage could no longer be edited without multi-tiered verification. A newly implemented whistleblower line bypassed management entirely and went straight to a third-party legal team. Every employee now had direct access to upper administration via anonymous feedback systems. But perhaps the most powerful change was the Employee Voice Committee, where kitchen staff, custodians, instructors, and interns sat at the same table to discuss improvements, not under threat, but with empowerment. Financially, the academy bounced back faster than anticipated. The stolen goods recovered from Damien's operation amounted to nearly 80% of what had been lost. Several black market buyers were arrested, and the press coverage surrounding the sting operation brought a wave of support and prestige. New donors and alumni stepped in with grants and scholarships to support the very employees who had been wronged. But more important than numbers were the people. Staff who once avoided eye contact now spoke freely, offering suggestions, asking questions, and mentoring younger recruits without fear of retaliation. One morning, Nathaniel passed a break room where Meera and Andre were whiteboarding a new tracking system designed by the team themselves. "We're calling it Project Clarity," Meera said, grinning, "so no one ever has to go through what we did again." As Nathaniel stood in the main kitchen, this time not undercover but as a leader among equals, he understood that the academy had survived something dark and emerged stronger, not in spite of it, but because of how it chose to heal. Graves Culinary Academy was no longer just a place to learn how to cook. It was a place where integrity was baked into every layer, and where no one, ever again, would be punished for telling the truth. The story of Graves Culinary Academy teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, accountability, and the value of integrity in the workplace. At its core, it reveals that even the most polished institutions can be hollowed out by fear and corruption when power is left unchecked. Nathaniel Graves' decision to step down from his executive perch and walk among his employees reminds us that true leadership isn't about control, it's about connection. By listening, observing, and acting with empathy, he was able to uncover deep-rooted injustice that no audit could reveal. The story also highlights the danger of silence. Innocent employees were punished not for wrongdoing, but for asking the right questions. It wasn't until someone chose to listen, really listen, that their voices were heard. The transformation of the academy wasn't just about installing better security systems or recovering stolen goods. It was about creating a culture where transparency, trust, and mutual respect replaced fear and manipulation. Ultimately, the greatest safeguard a company can have isn't surveillance or protocol. It's people who believe they are valued, heard, and empowered to speak up. When leaders lead with integrity and humility, they don't just protect their organizations, they inspire them to thrive.